There is a very familiar moment that many men have experienced, when everything still looks fine on the surface, but deep down, you clearly know that something is not right. She does not completely disappear, nor does she openly do anything wrong. Things simply become more vague, answers become shorter, her presence becomes less frequent, and whenever you ask, you always receive responses that are gentle enough to end the conversation, but not clear enough to explain what is actually happening. Gradually, you begin to wonder whether you are overthinking, while in reality, you are being led through the dark. This video is not about accusing or hunting for women's mistakes. It is about the moment a man begins to connect familiar phrases, realizes they are not random at all, and understands that they often appear when a woman is hiding something, or taking advantage of his trust while still keeping other options for herself. If you have ever felt that you were in a relationship where everything seemed to still be there, but the truth was not, this video will help you see more clearly the signs you once only felt, but never dared to name. There is one phrase that many men have heard, and most of them ignore it, because it sounds so light, so familiar, it even resembles care. It is when you express something that makes you uncomfortable, and she looks at you, smiles, and says, "Just relax. Calm down. Don't make a big deal out of it. It sounds reasonable, right?" But the issue is not the wording, it is the effect. This phrase is not really used to reassure you. It is used to make you doubt your own feelings. You sense that something is off, but instead of being asked further, instead of being listened to, you start wondering, maybe I really am overthinking. And the moment you begin questioning yourself instead of observing reality, you have already stepped away from your intuition. Here, I am not saying she is bad, nor that she intends to hurt you. Many women do not even realize they're doing this. But there is a very simple truth you need to remember. When someone truly cares about you, they do not try to silence you when you express how you feel. They may disagree, but they will want to understand what you are experiencing. On the other hand, when someone says you're just overthinking too early, too often, they do not want to clarify the issue. They just want the issue to disappear. And the fastest way to do that is to make you believe the problem lies with you. Many men fail at this point, not because they are weak, but because they want to keep the peace. They're afraid of conflict. They're afraid of losing what they currently have. So they reassure themselves, downplay their own feelings, tell themselves to let it go, that they are probably imagining things. But intuition does not appear randomly. It is the result of you noticing small details that your conscious mind has not yet named. You're not wrong for feeling that something is not right. The problem only begins when you train yourself to ignore that feeling in exchange for temporary calm. A mature man does not need to be suspicious all the time, but he also does not blind himself just to avoid an uncomfortable conversation. Calmness does not mean indifference. Maturity does not mean staying silent in the face of things that feel wrong. And if from the very beginning you have to learn not to trust yourself in order to keep a relationship, then sooner or later, the price you pay will be far greater. There is another phrase that often appears right after you begin to feel uneasy. It comes when you ask a bit more, observe a bit more closely, and she gently says, "Don't worry, it sounds familiar," soft, even reassuring. But if you pay attention, the phrase "don't worry" almost always appears only when there is something that actually makes you worry. When things are clear and transparent, you do not need to be told not to worry, because you naturally already feel at ease. "Don't worry" is often used when the other person does not want to be questioned further, does not want to explain, or does not want to clarify what you are sensing. And instead of resolving your anxiety, that phrase does only one thing: it asks you to silence your inner voice. Many men stay in exhausting relationships not because they do not see the problem, but because they have become used to reassuring themselves. They repeatedly tell themselves to let it go, that they are probably too sensitive, that they are overthinking, that there is nothing wrong. But if you have to keep repeating "don't worry" to yourself, that is no longer peace, it is tension being compressed. Real peace does not need to be reminded, it comes naturally, without explanation, without self-convincing. Your intuition is the same. It does not appear to ruin your relationship, but to protect you from what is unclear. When you constantly ignore it just to keep things looking fine, you're spending a great deal of energy without realizing it. A healthy relationship does not keep you in a constant state of emotional self-control, constantly telling yourself not to think, not to feel. Someone who truly cares about you will want to understand why you are worried, not just want you to stop worrying. And when you begin to trust your feelings more than empty reassurance, you do not become more difficult or paranoid, you simply become more honest with yourself. That is not a weakness. That is how a man preserves real calm in his life. There is another phrase that everyone can sympathize with, because it is very real. I'm too busy. I've been really busy. All of us have been busy at times. I have too. When work piles up, when life becomes messy, it is not always possible to reply immediately or meet frequently. But there is one very clear difference that you only notice after enough experience. Someone who truly cares about you, no matter how busy they are, still leaves you a small sign that you have a place in their life. It might be just a short message, a few-minute phone call, a clear plan for the next time. Being busy does not erase presence. It only makes it more concise. The problem begins when the word busy appears only with you, but not with other parts of her life. She's too busy to reply to you, yet has time to post stories, too busy to see you, yet still goes out, still socializes, still makes time for others. At that point, this is no longer a matter of time, but a matter of position. Many men get stuck here because they convince themselves that if they are more patient, more understanding, things will eventually change. But the truth is, care does not need to be begged for. You do not need to compete for space in someone's schedule. When someone wants you in their life, they will make room, even if it is very small. And when you realize that you are always the one waiting, the one adjusting, the one accommodating, that is not because you're not good enough, but because you're standing in a position lower than you deserve. Recognizing this is not about blaming anyone, but about stopping the habit of giving too much where there is no place for you. A man who knows his worth does not argue about who is busier. He simply observes where he is being placed and decides whether he'll continue to stay there or not. There is one word that sounds very harmless, even polite, and that is maybe, let's see. I'll let you know later. The word itself is not bad. Everyone has moments of uncertainty, but the problem begins when maybe appears too often, and always appears at moments that involve you. Every time you suggest a clear plan, you receive a half-hearted answer, neither a yes nor a no, and so you wait. You keep your time open. You hesitate to make other plans because you are afraid of missing the chance. Gradually, your life begins to freeze, just waiting for someone else's decision. Here, I am not saying she is using you. I am only saying one very simple thing. Someone who truly respects you will not leave you hanging for too long. They understand that your time has value too. Waiting does not make you more valuable. It only shows that you're willing to put your life on hold for someone else. And unfortunately, that rarely creates respect. On the contrary, a man who has his own life, his own plans, and is not afraid to move on when things are unclear, is often seen differently, not because he is cold, but because he does not put his life on standby. When you stop freezing your time for a vague answer, you do not lose opportunities, you simply reclaim your right to decide, and sometimes, it is only when you stop waiting that the other person begins to realize you are not an option that is always available. There is another phrase that sounds very reassuring, and that is very soon. Very soon we will talk things through. Very soon. Things will change. Very soon. I will sort things out. It sounds like hope, like everything is moving forward. But if you look closely, very soon is usually not accompanied by a specific timeline, nor by clear action. It is like a beautiful promise, just enough to make you keep waiting, keep giving, keep investing a little more. I'm not saying this phrase always carries bad intent, but when very soon repeats many times, while reality remains unchanged, it is no longer hope, but delay wrapped in sugar. Many men get stuck here because they believe that at least things are progressing. But the truth is, real progress always leaves traces. It shows up in behavior, in small but concrete changes, not in words that become smoother and more polished. Trust should be placed in what is repeated, not in what is said eloquently. Hope is not a plan. You do not need to cut things off immediately when you hear vague promises. You just need to observe what actually changes after those words. If everything remains the same, then the answer is already there. And when you learn to trust actions more than promises, you do not become colder. You simply become more clear-headed. That is how you protect your energy. instead of continuing to pour it into things that only exist in the future. There is another phrase that sounds very much like setting a boundary, but if you pay close attention, it often appears right after you express something you do not accept. Don't force me to do things I don't like. On the surface, it sounds completely reasonable. Everyone has the right not to do what they do not want to do. But here is the issue. You're not asking for anything unreasonable. You're simply talking about respect, about behavior that makes you feel uncomfortable, and instead of reflecting on their own actions, the other person turns a situation into your fault. That is when responsibility gets reversed. Suddenly, you become the difficult one, the controlling one, the one applying pressure, just because you dared to state your standards. Many men begin to doubt themselves at this point. They ask themselves whether they are asking for too much, whether they should be more easygoing. But loving someone does not mean giving up the basic things that make you feel respected. Real boundaries are when both people adjust so they do not hurt each other. If a phrase is used repeatedly only to preserve a behavior, then it is no longer a boundary, but an excuse to avoid change. At this point, you do not need to argue. You do not need to convince anyone. Standards are not controlled. They are simply how you define what you accept in your life, and you have the right to walk away from what does not fit without needing to win any argument. The clarity of your actions will speak for itself. There is a phrase that is often said very casually, sometimes even with a hint of pride. Most of my friends are guys. Having friends of the opposite sex is not wrong in itself. Any mature person understands that. The issue is not whether she has male friends or not, but how she manages attention and boundaries. If those relationships are clear, respectful, not ambiguous, not intrusive, and do not invade your shared space, then there is nothing to discuss. But if those male friends frequently text late at night, flirt, and interfere in your relationship, and she treats that as normal, then this is something you need to observe more carefully. Here, I am not advising you to forbid anything, nor am I saying you should be jealous. What is needed is awareness. Is she willing to set boundaries to protect the peace of this relationship? Or does she prioritize preserving the attention around her more than your sense of safety? Respect rarely lives in explanations. It shows itself very clearly through actions. Someone who truly values you will not allow outside relationships to repeatedly force you to regulate your emotions. And when you observe long enough, the answer usually does not require further questioning. It is not jealousy or control that makes a relationship last, but clarity and how two people protect the shared space they have created. There is one thing many men only realize after they have been through enough experiences. Women rarely state directly where they stand in their life. They do not need to explain it, nor do they need to declare anything. Your position is revealed through very small, very familiar phrases, and more importantly, through how they behave afterward. When you look back with enough clarity, you will see that all the signs were there from the beginning. This video is not meant to encourage you to resist, argue, or try to prove that you are right. You do not need to compete with anyone. The most important thing is simply to respect your own intuition, preserve your energy for places that deserve it, and be willing to walk away when things are no longer clear. Silence at the right moment, stepping back at the right time, is sometimes the strongest way for a man to protect his peace and his self-respect.